Let's get ready, let's start. So I think that you will be already quite curious about the framework for the 21 to 27 period. So you might be interested in learning how to apply, what to consider when apply, how projects should be set up, what framework these projects should have as regards partnership, as regards, I mean, you know already as regards the content, but also as regards the budget. You may be also interested already in learning some details about the co-financing, the eligibility of the expenditure and so on. And that's why we would now dedicate quite a detailed and focused session on this issue, how to shape a good project. And here, my colleagues from the JS and MA will provide you with the respective input. You already know Nuno Madeira and Nicolas Chesnel from the JS from yesterday's afternoon sessions. So these will be the colleagues from the JS that will share information with you. In addition, my colleague Wolfgang Schrattenecker from the Managing Authority will join us. So please, Wolfgang is on the spot, so he will come to the table now. Wolfgang is working for the Managing Authority also since a very long time now, and is very experienced already with the third programming period now. He's also dealing with finances. He is paying the funds, so very important role there. Wolfgang is not only green at heart, but has a green thumb too, so he is the one who takes care about the plans in our office, otherwise they wouldn't be green anymore. And he will provide you with some input on the finances and on the eligibility rules today. In addition, Nuno, Nicolas, and Wolfgang will be supported by Martina Bach. Martina is our Austrian contact point and will provide you also with some insight and provide you information on the role of the ACPs in our program. So the ACP network will be represented in this session by Martina today. Thank you. That's now the time to pass over to Nuno, who will start the input on this session.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Lena. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Wolfgang. In today's presentation, we will tell you a little bit more about what shapes a good project application. So in this regard, I would just ask my colleagues to share the presentation so that I can start. So here I will address the key requirements or the key aspects that require attention before the submission of a project application. I will start off by saying a few words about key facts, about our typologies for cooperation, and then I will hand over the word to my colleagues that Lena introduced at the beginning. If you could push on to the next slide, please. So let me start off by saying a few facts and figures. In yesterday's session, we were told several times that the Alpine region, so the Alpine region is very heterogeneous. I mean, this condition is further intensified by both economic and demographic disparities, but also a number of external factors, such as climate change, globalization, or digitalization. So what we want to do in the next program is to exploit these untapped potentials and address the challenges that know no borders, from energy efficiency to climate change adaptation. This will help us to be at the forefront of the transition to carbon neutrality and climate resilience. This is our mission statement. This will guide us for the next 7 years. How we are going to do this? Well, we have a full alignment with the EU macro regional for the Alpine region. As you can see on the map in the slides, our territory is fully aligned with the one from USAL. I think this is already a good sign that both the strategy and the program go hand in hand. On top of this, we have above 100 million euro ERDF at a co-financing rate of 75%, which will offer plenty of room for opportunities, either through actually through our projects. And here we introduce a new typology of cooperation, which I will later refer to in this presentation. And we will also introduce more simplification. Simplification is at the top priority of the EU agenda. And our program is committed to make simplification a reality for project partners. We have introduced a number of measures to make project management easier, thus making full use of the possibilities offered by the EU regulations for the 21-27 period. Push on to the next slide, please. So let me start off by saying a few words about the classic projects before I introduce the new typology of projects. Classic projects is a well-known typology. It's been in place for several years, and it's the basis for a result-oriented approach to transnational cooperation. Classic projects address one or more stages of the policy cycle. What does it mean? It means that projects address the strategic or the strategy policy developments through the elaboration of common strategies or methodologies. And they can also explore piloting activities to test models, tools, validate solutions that are applicable to different contexts. And then we have also the third element, which comes after piloting activities, the implementation. And here it is important to focus on dissemination and capitalization activities to encourage policy implementation across sectors and regions. Push on to the next slide, please. But we feel that at the same time that we should open the door to experimentation. We feel that we should open the door to newcomers. And this is the reason why we will introduce in the 21-27 period the small-scale projects. In a nutshell, the purpose of small-scale projects is to make greater use of synergies and complementarities, but at the same time, reach out to newcomers, organizations who are eager to take part in transnational cooperation, but for some reason or another, they do not approach us. So through small-scale projects, we want to be innovative. We want to open the door to experimentation. And this is why small-scale projects offer the opportunity to conduct set-the-scene projects that explore themes that are rather new to transnational cooperation. As I said, here we want to provide room for experimentation through exploratory activities. On top of this, small-scale projects are also an opportunity to conduct capitalization actions, to roll out available tools and solutions, and promote the uptake for greater impact among target groups. These actions address topics where the body of knowledge is already available and tested by stakeholders, but we need to intensify complementarities because for some reason or another, there wasn't enough time to capitalize these available tools or solutions. So we provide funding to conduct these capitalization actions. Next slide, please. Now let me tell you a little bit about the cornerstones. In this two entry table, you see the similarities and differences between small scale and classic projects. As it was mentioned yesterday, the first call will open to both classic and small scale projects, but only from priority 1, 2, 3. However, small scale projects are also open to priority 4. We hope you can do it in the next calls for sure. But in the first call is just open for priorities 1, 2, and 3. Of course, apart from the differences I just mentioned between classic and small scale projects, we also have considerable differences in terms of budget, of course. Although the co-financing rate remains the same, we have differences on the duration, on the partnership, or even the transnationality requirements for cooperation. A big advantage of small-scale projects compared to classic projects is the approach, or if you will, the selection procedure. For small-scale projects, it will be a faster selection procedure because it follows just one step procedure, which is not the case for classic projects. It requires a two-step procedure. In both cases, applications will be submitted through JEMS, which we will talk a little bit about it later in this presentation. Of course, these are the let's say the parameters for submitting either a small scale or a classic project. So we advise and we encourage all project applicants to consider these values as outlined in the table. However, deviations may be accepted in well-justified cases. So please tell us whether this is the case or not, so that we understand why it is needed to deviate from this parameter. Next slide, please. Now, here I will tell you a little bit more about the selling points for quality projects. And maybe let me start off by saying, why do we need a transnational approach? Well, this is certainly a question that you will be confronted with during the application process. Why the topic you want to address requires a transnational cooperation, or if you want, why transnational cooperation is the right context for working together compared to the regional or the national scale. On top of this, it is also important to assess the relevance of the partners and the quality of your partnership. Of course, we all want to bring on board motivated stakeholders. We want to ensure a balanced distribution of partners across geographies and sectors. these aspects are relevant and show the right balance in the partnership, in terms of knowledge, in terms of expertise, in terms of course, cultural backgrounds, and so on. This will help you deliver tangible results for long-term effects, which is why outputs needs to be durable and transferable. Now, in order to deliver durable and transferable outputs, you have to take a step back and you have to be familiar with the policy context. And what does it mean by being familiar with the policy context? Well, you will have to demonstrate that you are aware of the wider policy developments and the current status, of course. Which factors prevents the European Union or its regions or both to take bold steps on the topic that you want to address. And equally important, how can the project make a contribution to the program objectives? And here, I will say a few words about the intervention logic. For the partnership, it is important to understand that a clear intervention logic needs to reflect the current context, the current policy context, of course, its underlying causes, and the change which the project seeks to achieve in the program area by implementing the planned activities. So, in other words, the coherence of the project intervention logic needs to be aligned with the program intervention logic, which means needs to be aligned with the program specific objectives and the program expected results. This is a precondition, or if you will, a precondition for halfway to success. Now, in the next slides, my colleague Wolfgang will tell you a few words about the simplification rules and procedures that we will introduce in the 21-27 period. Wolfgang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nuno. As it was already mentioned by my colleague Lena, I'm Wolfgang Schrattenecker, and I'm the certifying officer in our program. In the new program period, the certifying authority will be called in a bit more technical way accounting function, and it will be part of the managing authority. So it will be not a separate authority any longer, but of course the tasks will remain the same. The most important task, I would say, at least from the viewpoint of our beneficiaries, and Lena mentioned it already, is to ask the European Commission on a frequent basis for fresh ERDF funds so that we can do the payments to the beneficiaries in due time and hopefully in a short period of time. The last months and weeks, I was very much dedicated to the eligibility rules, to the elaboration of the new eligibility rules for the 21-27 period. And this is also my main subject for today, for the kickoff. The aim when setting up the eligibility rules was to go for further simplification, to simplify rules, to simplify procedures, to include into the rules as many simplified cost options as possible, as, for instance, flat rates, lump sums. And also, not to forget, to harmonize with other programs. For this purpose, we did or had many internal discussions. We had exchange with stakeholders. We did reality checks for the purpose and with the aim to simplify the daily work of our beneficiaries, to reduce them from administrative burdens as much as possible. Today, I will not present the eligibility rules in detail. I think there will be better occasions, for instance, in applicant seminars. But I feel it's important for applicants to have already now a kind of overall pictures on our cost categories and on the ways how expenditure can be reported in these cost categories. And this is what I would like to provide today. In the Alpine space, we have 5 cost categories, and I think you can see it now in the overview, and I think the most important one is staff costs. Experienced listeners among you who participated already in projects in the past period will have already noticed when seeing the overview that there is no big change foreseen for staff costs. There are still 2 calculation methods. The one is based on real costs, the fixed percentage method, and on the other hand, we have a flat rate of 20% of other direct costs. In our case, in the Alpine space, this would be on top of external services and expertise and on equipment cost. But it would not be entirely correct if I said there is no change for the staff costs. At least for the fixed percentage method, there is one significant improvement compared to the last period. I would say for our beneficiaries, there will be no 6 monthly task reports anymore. And those of you who had to fill in the task reports will, I assume, be very happy and glad about this announcement. I think this means really reduction of work. Concerning office and administration, there will be no change. 15% flat rate on top of staff costs. But for travel and accommodation, there will be something new. Think about all these tiny invoices and travel tickets. The beneficiaries had to collect them, to document. The controllers had to verify all these documents for very, very small amounts. And therefore, we really wanted to relieve both beneficiaries and also controllers from this, I would say, unnecessary burden. And that's why we are very happy that the regulations allowed to go for a flat rate as well as for travel and accommodation. And we will have in the future a 10% flat rate on top of staff costs for travel and accommodation. And I would like to mention as well that it will be the only calculation method for this cost category. External expertise and service costs, as well as equipment, the 2 remaining cost categories. The expenditure in these cost categories can also in future be reported on a real cost basis. But beside that, I would say we have a very new and interesting offer to our beneficiaries, a 40% flat rate on top of staff costs. That means you will report on staff costs and get 40% on top of it. This flat rate will cover all the remaining costs, all the remaining cost categories. And this is a very, very good offer, I would say, for our beneficiaries. It's important to know that you have seen now the table of real cost calculation methods, flat rates. It's important to know that applicants will have to decide on that already in the application phase. Later decisions are not possible. In order to support this a little bit, you will find in the eligibility rules, in the program manual, an overview with the options that stand open for you. There are 2 options, you will see it. there are 2 options available for small-scale projects, plus an additional one. That means 3 options are available for classical projects. But as mentioned, you can read that in the program manual. During the last period, we were quite often and frequently in contact with our beneficiaries. And we discussed quite often what we can do better, where we can simplify. And I very much hope that we did not promise too much, because I think we really did a big step forward, a big step towards simplification. And with these words, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Nicolas.
Thank you, Wolfgang. So now I will, another key element to have in mind in the application phase is the monitoring system on which you will be applying. So in this new programming period, we will work on a brand new platform called JEMS. So I'm pretty sure it will become your new favorite website in the next months. So JEMS stands for Joint E-Monitoring System. So it's a common IT environment for project holders used by a lot of Interreg programs across Europe. JEMS will be the place where you will submit your project proposal. And this platform will be available end of January, early February 22. And in the meantime, you will have the possibility to work offline on your application form. So a Word document covering all the sections of the application form will be available on our website in the coming days. It will enable you to work on your proposal outside the system, and you can share it easily within your partnership. We will then invite you to introduce by copy-pasting your application form into JEMS. So on the platform is open. So to do this last exercise, we will give you about 1 month to copy-paste the content of your application form. So there won't be any upload of document, but just to do a copy-paste. Having in mind our current experience with our monitoring system, I would like to share with you a couple of tips. So first of all, I would invite you to read carefully the technical guidances we will develop, and we will make them available very soon. Please do not wait the very last minute to apply online. So there's going to be a lot of people working on our system. So there's going to be maybe some traffic jam in the last days or hours. So please work on a regular basis, and don't wait the last minute. And also we would invite you to save on a regular basis your work when you will be on the platform, just to be on the safe side and to avoid bad surprises. To sum up, let's have a look on the next slide at our timeline. So the call one was officially launched or open since a couple of days. We plan to offer you online support to all potential applicants in the course of January via a Q&A session. So please keep an eye on our website to know a bit more and when this session will take place. The JEMS platform will be open, as I said a bit earlier, end of January, early February. And do not forget to keep in mind the official deadline for submitting your proposal. So it's going to be end of February, the 28th of February for classic projects. And if you are working on small scale projects, it's going to be a bit later. You have a bit more time. It's going to be the 22nd of April 22. So that's more or less what you have to keep in mind regarding our new monitoring system, JEMS. And good luck now for the application process. And I will hand over to my colleague Martina now.
Yeah, hello from my side. I represent the Alpine Space contact points today. And now you've heard many issues which are relevant for project application, but I expect there are still open questions, and for sure new questions will arise during project development. In this case, don't hesitate to get in touch with your national Alpine Space contact point, which is available for each Alpine Space country. We are here to clarify your questions in your language. In some countries, the national info days took already place, like in Italy, for example, or Switzerland. In others, like in Austria or Germany, info sessions will follow soon, next week and the week after. You can find all contact details and also the dates for the info days on the program website. I would like to invite you to discuss your project idea with the ACP at an early stage to get feedback whether the project idea fits into the program and how you can improve your project proposal. We assist you also in partner search if you need it. In case of technical questions linked to the application form or the JEMS, you can contact the colleagues from the GS. After project submission, all applications will be assessed by the Joint Secretariat based on the information submitted in the application. Additionally, there will be also national verifications by the ACPs in this phase. We should verify the legal status and the capacities of all partners. Therefore, your ACP will inform you on time on the necessary documents you should provide to the ACPs. Finally, the selection of the projects will be done by the program committee, and for the selected projects, Get Started seminar will be offered by the program, but also national seminars will take place to explain the further process. Last but not least, I would like to give you following advice. Don't forget to have a look on what has been already done in previous projects. Get in contact with the project partners to discuss their activities and results, to discuss your planned activities. They can give you feedback and perhaps they also can inspire your ideas. Thank you, and I will hand over to Nuno again.
Thank you, Martina. Indeed, I couldn't agree more that our potential applicants needs to keep in mind the results already delivered by Interreg in previous periods. As a last slides, I would just like to give you some information about the documents you have to keep in mind during the application procedure. And basically here we're talking about 3 documents that synthesize in a very good way, I would say, the information that you just learned today about simplification, about JEMS, and of course, about the intervention logic, which I mentioned during this presentation. So the first document, of course, that you have to keep in mind is the Interreg program, which is already available online. Pretty much the same for the other documents, of course. But in the Interreg program, you will find the challenges and needs for the next period. You will also understand what is our vision and mission, and this will help you align your the topic you want to address to the challenges and needs of our program for the next period. In the Interreg program, you will learn more about the actions that we want to co-finance, from solutions to tools. And of course, the target groups that we want to get involved in your activities. On top of the Interreg program, you also have to consider the program manual, where you learn more about the rules and procedures, like those that you learned today from Wolfgang, but also key requirements and further guidance on how to fill out the application form. And of course, last but not least, the terms of reference, which provide the legal framework with key information on budgets and deadlines. So to conclude, for project applicants, it is important to keep in mind these 3 documents. And on top of this, if you will, please make sure that everyone in the partnership is committed to deliver quality results. I think this is key for your success and for our success. On top of this, I would also encourage you to avoid last-minute submission, and equally important, to use plain language. This is also key to success, to explain your topic, the challenge you want to address and how you're going to address in a plain language. Feel free to reach out for further information. We will be available, of course, through the Q&A sessions that we plan to organize in January next year. Thank you very much.
Good, so thank you, Nuno. Thank you all colleagues for providing that detailed and very informative framework of the new program and information on the application in the new program. What I would like to ask Elisa now is for some reactions from the Slido. So I assume that you have been addressed with some questions, and now we would have the chance to answer at least some of those questions. So Elisa, please feel free to share your contribution now.
Yes, indeed, we received some questions, and I would maybe like to group them into like two main topics. One regards mainly the differences between small scale and classic project, and one is more based on the flat rate costs. So I would maybe read two questions together because they can be like somehow addressed at the same time. So can small scale project do both, include newcomers and push rollout, promote uptake? And is there any difference in application of eligibility rules between classic and small scale project?
I think I can answer the first question, and then I hand over to Wolfgang, who will certainly clarify the question related to flat rate. Well, in relation to the first question, the answer is yes. Of course, this we very much welcome the participation of newcomers in rollout actions or capitalization actions. So this shouldn't be a problem to bring together newcomers and in a capitalization action.
And as regards the second questions about if there are specific eligibility rules for small-scale projects, I have to say no. In principle, the eligibility rules are valid for classical and for small-scale projects, both. But as I mentioned beforehand, you will find in the eligibility rules an overview with options, combination options of flat rates and real costs calculation methods that stand open for small-scale projects, and other ones who stand open for classical projects too. And as regards small-scale projects, we wanted to encourage beneficiaries to go for more simplified cost options, to go for more flat rates. And that's why only the two options, including as much as possible simplified cost options, stand open, whereas for classical projects, also the combination with more real costs is available. But in principle, the eligibility rules are valid for both small-scale projects and classical projects.
And maybe, Wolfgang, one other question from my side, just to assure a bit some of the participants, because I see two questions related to the flat rate. So like for the 40% rule, do we need to specify all external expertise? And then we have another question, what if real costs are below the flat rate? For example, travel costs would be lower than 10% of staff costs. What happens to the remaining budget? Could you maybe give some more inputs on this?
As regards your first question, 40% flat rate on top of staff costs, there is no additional documentation needed for any other cost than staff costs. For staff costs, we will need the full documentation, this is clear. But for the other costs, you will get only 40% on top of the staff costs without any additional documentation. And as regards the second question, flat rate for travel and accommodation costs, I think flat rate says already, if you spend less or more, it's up to you. You will get 10% without any documentation behind. So nobody will ask if you have only 7% perhaps, or if you will have 12%. So this is, I think, the purpose and the sense of flat rates.
Thank you. And if we do have the time for at least one last question, I would maybe raise this one. Now it disappeared. Could you explain better what do you mean with capitalization and how this applies to small-scale projects? So maybe to give some further inputs on how this new type of projects works.
Right. So in the case of capitalization actions, which is one of the options that we consider for small-scale projects. Well, here, imagine that you are familiar with the results delivered by an Interreg project, but for some reason this Interreg project did not have enough time to capitalize the results. Well, here you have an opportunity to, let's say, to roll out the tools, the solutions, let's say the outputs delivered by these projects, and through a small-scale project, exactly to ensure the uptake of these outputs for greater impact. So this is I would consider the capitalization actions. So as I said during my intervention, capitalization actions means that you will address topics where the body of knowledge is already there. So the outputs have already been delivered. So, and this represents an opportunity to take a step further with a small-scale project, which will be rather short in terms of partners and, of course, budget and duration. But here you have the opportunity to, as I said, to take a step further and intensify the dissemination of the outputs that have been delivered in another context.
Thank you, Nuno. And since I see that we still have a bit of time, there is one other question which I see that have been voted many times. So do we need to decide on the cost method already in step 1? Wolfgang?
Yeah. Thank you also for this question. No, I think this decision is not necessary in the first step. There can be changes. You can think about it till the end, till you send the application form to the GS till the submission date. Then we need the decision, and then the decision is a final one.
Thank you. And one other very much voted question is, where can I find the open calls?
I think here the answer is quite quite straightforward. You just have to visit our website, where you will find all the information you need, particularly the 3 documents I mentioned during the presentation. So if you visit our websites, you will find the Interreg program, the program manual, and the terms of reference. You cannot miss it, believe me.
Thank you, Nuno. I'm now scrolling through the question we have still. to see if there, because some of them are quite specific and maybe we don't address them now. One regards observers. So will observer be admitted in the new program? What about their travel costs?
I think this is also a question for me as regards the eligibility rules. In contrast to the previous program period, there will be no specific rules for observers anymore included in the eligibility rules. That means project partners, lead partners can report travel costs for their observers, of course, but the eligibility rules as such do apply. So if you want to report the travel costs for an observer, you have to have available an agreement, not really a contract, but perhaps a written agreement in an email that the observer should take part and that the project partner will take over the costs, and then the costs can be handed in and will be considered as eligible under the cost category external expertise and services.
And I will maybe remain on Wolfgang one more time to reassure again participants, do all the partners of a project have to choose the same cost procedure?
This answer is very, very simple. No, they don't have to do that. Each partner decides for himself.
And yeah, I see many questions still all on the financing part, which is the tricky one. Interesting, like someone is asking like how the first level control will actually work then for the flat rate costs. So what will be actually checked by the FLC?
Yeah, I think details on that can be explained later in the applicant seminar, for instance. But you should know that when you include some items in the list of expenditure, the flat rates will be automatically calculated there and included. And then as soon as the first level controller accepts or verifies the expenditure under the direct costs, for instance, under the soft costs, it also will certify the flat rates automatically.
Good. So, thank you, Elisa, for all these questions. We see that there is a lot of interest that you would like to learn more details, especially as regards the eligibility rules, the budgetary framework, but also as regards the setup, first step, second step of the application, what to provide when, in what level of detail. So our recommendation would be as first step that you consult the website, the homepage. There you will find a section dedicated to project applicants, so where you can find all these detailed information already available. And you will be for sure informed not only by the website, but also by the JS, then in a direct communication on the applicant seminar, let's say the question-answer session, a kind of webinar that will be organized probably in early next year, where we will provide you with more details on the technical issue, just as JEMS, but also as regards the application form as such, and where you will have the chance to raise very detailed questions too. So this was now a kind of outlook, and I would like to thank my colleagues for providing these first details.